Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance, and this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from Holly, and here's her story. Hey, Ollie, it is a relief to find validation and understanding from your channel. I had to reach out to you regarding my situation. I have a bipolar type 1 narcissistic father, which I have been no contact with for 3 years, and an NPD BPD codependent mother who I am trying to save myself and my toddler from, but I'm afraid of the repercussions it will cause with the wider family when I take the plunge. I have had 2 long-term relationships with 2 narcissists in the past and have been a single lone parent for 2 years. Both of the relationships I walked away from and had to rebuild my life from scratch. The most recent relationship was the hardest to heal from as we had a child together. I am a first-time mom navigating my way through a shitstorm created originally by my mom and dad and continued by my mom through the courts with the baby's father. I am trying my hardest to make sure my son grows up emotionally healthy, well-balanced, with the tools to protect himself from toxic people if they were to be in his life. Some insight would really benefit me. I am terrified I am a narcissist, as sometimes I remind myself of my mother and have been afraid to write to you because I was diagnosed with BPD. However, I question this, as the diagnosis was never made officially to my face, was never discussed by my doctor, and at the time I was severely traumatized after escaping an abusive relationship and having to go live with my mother in her chaos. I was extremely anxious. I was told I was paranoid by my mom and was very depressed. The doctor never told me I was BPD. They said I had anxiety and some traits of BPD, feelings of emptiness and abandonment and low self-esteem, trauma in my opinion. But I found BPD written on my discharge summary sheet from the mental health clinic. I was devastated and embarrassed. I was one of those monsters you talk about. I'm not so sure. I went to some appointments with my narcissistic mother for treatment of my severe anxiety and depression, which I believe stems from not only her gaslighting and manipulation, but also the new experience of being a first-time mom with no sleep or level-headed nurturing or reassuring support from her. She is incapable of empathy, and I recall her telling me after leaving my abusive ex that I should be grateful I had a baby and a house with my ex, in a tone that implied I was acting spoiled and selfish for having left. I had a rucksack and my baby's day bag, and that was it. She continued gaslighting me and took control of my son a lot, which I hated. She acted jealous and bitter since he was born, and her narcissistic bullshit has ramped up a level since I became mentally well, happy mother, enjoying the bond I have made with my son. Looking back, I believe I was traumatized by the abuse of my ex quite considerably, which involved a lot of manipulation, gaslighting, lying, drug and alcohol abuse, dealing with Class A's, and occasional physical violence. He had no empathy for me and our son whatsoever. It was eerily scary how cold he could be. Interestingly, as soon as I left, he cared about our child and has fought to see him. Why does he have to fight to see his own child? Why should he have to fight to see his own child? Why are you making him fight to see his own child? This is where the BPD comes in. And I kind of, when you said it, and how you were talking about fighting your ex in court, it's raising a flag with me. It's raising, why does he have to fight to see his son? Why? Why? Regardless of what you and his relationship was between you and him, why are you making him, if he wasn't abusive to your son, if he's not a danger to your son, why are you making him fight to see his son? You talk about the bond you made with your son. What about the bond he wants to make with his son? Maybe the reason he couldn't get close to his son was because he was unhappy in there, because you were both unhappy in a relationship you shouldn't have been in. Does that mean he doesn't get to see his son? He has to fight to see his son? I know you're Canadian. I know you're Canadian, and I know the shit that could be gotten away with in Canadian family court, and it's disgusting. And I really hope that that's not the case. Looking back, I believe I was traumatized by the abuse of my ex. Oh, hold on. I understand my son needs to make sense of who both his parents are, but he isn't safe with this man, and I blame myself so badly for the cycle repeating through another generation. Why isn't he safe? Why? It's easy for you to say it. Why isn't he safe? Despite my fears, I have been diplomatic and have agreed to contact. However, I am afraid, as when we lived there, he used our son as a toy to taunt me with. He would come home drunk and snatch him off me and go ring the police to get him taken off me and put into foster care. I would be terrified, which is why he did it. Wait, he would just come home drunk, take your son off your lap, and threaten to put him in foster care? He would discard him at the drop of the hat when he got bored of playing with him, and when we arranged for him to do an occasional night feed, he would change his mind and not tell me, so our son would be crying hungry, and he would shout at me to shut him up. I would then find out he hadn't fed him because the bottle of milk I expressed was still in the fridge. I daren't speak to him directly, as he was already angry. As with everything, it was easier to just do it myself, but I gave him an opportunity to be there for him, as I'm not pro-parental alienation. That hurt so much, as I wanted us to raise him well together. He would neglect him by drinking and falling asleep on the sofa with him while he was a few weeks old. Something the health visitor said is not safe. I was prescribed sleeping meds because I was so anxious and didn't sleep day or night for a full month after giving birth until I left him and knew my son was safe. My narcissistic mother, once I moved back in with her, was more than happy to help with my son, and also explained to my psychiatrist how mentally unstable I was and how bad she felt for me and how hard it was for her taking care of my baby and me while I just sat there like an empty shell. She spoke for me and reveled in looking Mom of the Year and victim by explaining how awful it was for her to go through. Unknown to her, I already briefed the doctors on her narcissism. When I rang to speak to a psychiatric nurse about the unexpected BPD label they gave me on my discharge form from therapy, they said they had given me this label not because of me being a borderline, but because of the narcissistic people I'm surrounded by. And the label would give me access to free DBT therapy, which would teach me how to manage my time, set boundaries, and validate my emotions. In the sessions, they talked about going no contact with toxic people, but the label flawed me. My mom used it to invalidate everything I said from then on. She said, "Here, you might need these books on BPD. I don't need them because I'm not what I thought, crazy." I felt so hurt and afraid. Every time my mom hurts my feelings, she brought up my diagnosis and never felt bad or apologized for anything. Originally, my golden child brother was diagnosed with full-blown BPD a year before me, but when I saw him at my mom's house, still stuck there getting my shit together, he said, "Oh no, I don't have that anymore. That's old news. No, I have autism now because I'm so intelligent." My mom was in the background nodding at him all proud. My brother smoked down his nose at me like I was scum. Yeah, the autism fraud. In the past, my mother has liked me and my golden child brother to do well, but not too well mentally that we leave and live independently from her. I feel sorry for my brother as he is so enmeshed with her. I think I have lost him now forever, which really hurts as I remember what a sweet, kind boy he was before she ruined him. He's your golden child brother and you lost him? Are you in a competition with your mother for your brother? Like, it sounds like the whole family's fucked. Whole family's fucked. Why are you wading into personality disorder? I guess I was the lucky one because I left and didn't speak to her for years, and he took the full force of it. My brother got a first degree, my brother got a first in his degree, and it sits pride of place on mom's windowsill, whereas she didn't even see me through the 3 years I did mine. She purposefully didn't acknowledge my degree certificates or show any interest in what I was doing or achieving, but turned up at my graduation all dressed up to receive praise and attention. She has always done that when I have achieved anything, either taken credit, but more often than not, menaced me? I don't know. She has always done that when I have achieved anything, either taken credit for it, but more often than not, menaced me and dismissed me like I wasn't even there. A blessing in disguise, I guess, but it stings my heart. My mother created an A-bomb in that house when I stayed there temporarily after leaving my ex. My brother came to live there temporarily for some reason, couldn't pay the rent where he lived, and was too depressed, etc. So came home and became mommy's little helper again, like when we were kids. He's 26, I'm 31. She triangulated us, for example, telling my brother he had to pay rent, but I didn't have to while we both stayed there, despite the fact I said several times in front of everybody, we all need to have a conversation about rent and food and shopping expenses so we all know where we stand, but of course that fell on deaf ears. Being sleep deprived from breastfeeding my son every 90 minutes around the clock, she would purposefully encourage my brother to play drums in the music room to keep me awake and got supply from pitting us off each other, to the point where I got so upset I got my son in the car to leave to go somewhere quiet to figure out what the fuck was going on and calm down away from the situation. I knew he would be safe with me, his mom, and was feeding him rather than respecting my need for space. She and my brother decided to rip the car door off its hinges to get me out of the car, and my mom was trying to take my baby away from me like she was his mom or something. Then my brother called the police. No action was taken, but I found the police didn't do anything when the car, how is the car door ripped off its hinges? And then the police come and they don't do anything? How do they explain the car door off the hinges? See, this could be where part of the borderline and the histrionics come in. Okay, and I'm going to be very honest with you, Holly. This is written like someone who has a personality disorder. More on the histrionic side than borderline. Your issue is histrionics. It's not borderline. It's histrionics. You're histrionic. Everything is safety of your baby and being ripped. You're all histrionics, which is why I think you're afraid to write to me. Everything's dramatic and over the top with you. I know it. I can see it. Then my brother called the police. No action was taken, but I found somewhere for us to live. Luckily, my mom partner is a farmer and had an old rundown farmhouse on private land that was abandoned, but still had heating in it despite the dead flies and dust. It was heaven to have some peace to think at last. I stayed there with money I had managed to save. I secured our own cottage for me and my son so we would have some peace. That is where I am to this day. I am 95% no contact with my mom and 100% no contact with my brother. I feel I lost my brother because of her. I appreciate I have done wrong in all this somewhere, but the dynamics are horrendous and I have more logic and routine than they will ever have. I am sick of being the scapegoat and told I am crazy. I am afraid of the future, but now I am entitled. Want to know why they call you crazy? Because of your histrionics. Your histrionics is why they call you crazy, and I have a feeling you have no control over it. It's probably how you get what you want, is through your histrionics. And the problem with histrionics is eventually everybody gets sick of them. And you get labeled crazy. That's the problem. I am afraid of the future, but now I am entitled to free childcare. I don't ever want my mom in our lives again, but I am afraid she will tell me I will mess my son up on my own. And if you don't get control of your emotions, you will. And if you don't figure out a way to have his father in his life, you will. You will. If you want to make your son into a sexually confused son husband, keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. The court process with my ex has taken 2 years so far. He has failed 4 drug and alcohol tests and had 3 job changes. He is very reckless and impulsive character, and social services witnessed and reported his lack of empathy. I was so blind, he was just like my father. My son's father admitted in court 10 accounts of abuse against me and our son, yet the law says he must have contact, so I have trusted the judge's decision on how to go about making that as safe as possible, despite getting triggered all over the place. It isn't about you getting triggered, it's about being able to establish and relate. Whether he's got problems or drug and alcohol problems or not, he still has a right to his son, to see his son. It's not about you being triggered. It's not. It's not about you being triggered. Because your triggering leads to more histrionics. That leads to people calling you crazy and leads to you being isolated. Freaking out and doing the over-the-top histrionics might feel good at the time, might feel like you're getting something accomplished, might feel like you're getting your way. It's always going to turn around and bite you in the end. Lots of self-care at my end and kept things stable and calm for our son at home. 2 years and 4 months later, I have parented myself and my son with as much love, validation, and kindness as I possibly could, while regulating not just my emotions, but his as well. Well, at least you understand that your emotions, because that's what it is, your emotions need to be regulated. Your emotions are your histrionics. I have had triggers and I have screamed at my son in his face a handful of times through sheer frustration. So wait a minute. So sheer frustration, tiredness, and desperation, and I feel so ashamed, and sit and cuddle and say, Mommy's so sorry. It's not your fault. Let's take a minute. I can calm myself and him and move forward in a more constructive way at that point. I panic afterwards that I'm like my mom and I'm damaging him. You are. Yeah, that damages him. And for you to judge your husband, for your ex, okay, for being abusive, you're just as abusive. Just because you're not drinking and it's drugs, you're not any better. And your histrionics is a cover for your abuse. You want it both ways. You want to talk about a bond with your son and then you're going to scream in a 2-year-old's face? Several occasions? If you're doing it now, it's going to continue. That's borderline. I'm sorry, that is borderline person. You don't scream. If you got to sit there and scream in a 2-year-old's face and then be like, oh, I know it's wrong. No, that's on you, Holly. That's on you. And then to hold any kind of fucking judgment over your ex-husband because of his drugs and out for a drug and alcohol problem. It's hypocrisy at its finest. It really is. You both fucked up. How dare you hold him in judgment when you're there screaming in a 2-year-old's face? You panic afterwards. How do you think he feels? Again, comes back to you, right? How do you think your son feels? You want to make him into a sexually confused son husband? Keep doing what you're doing. But I'm determined to heal and be the best I can be and decipher my triggers and make sense of all the trauma I have. After reading a lot of complex PTSD, I believe this describes my symptoms with more accuracy than BPD does. May have some PTSD. No, this is BPD and histrionic personality disorder. You're not getting away from the BPD. You're not. Sorry. Don't get me wrong, if I had BPD, I would work on it and heal myself to the best of my ability for the sake of my son, and I am. But it doesn't ring true somehow. BPD is not... Here's the problem. BPD is not treatable. You want to treat BPD? Stop being a manipulative asshole. That's how you treat BPD. Don't scream in your son's face. That's how you treat BPD. That is a choice you are making. These are choices. I have never attempted suicide, and I don't self-harm or manipulate people, and I don't act impulsive. I don't play games, and I take responsibility for my actions. I have a weekly routine and a daily routine. I don't smoke more than 5 cigarettes a day and drink 2 to 3 glasses of red wine at the weekend max. So you're still drinking. So you're drinking and you're smoking, but you can but you rationalize it because you're only having 2 or 3 glasses of red wine on the weekends and 5 cigarettes a day. This is BPD. I meditate every night. I have some savings, and I'm looking at getting my will written, so if anything were to happen to me, my son would be accommodated for with someone non-narcissistic. So you're trying, if something were to happen to you, trying to prevent his father from getting legal custody of his own child? Nah, you're not narcissistic. Yeah, right. No, this ain't BPD. Right. Right. Trying to control your child and your ex-husband from beyond the grave, but you don't have BPD. Right. Right. I am doing as much research as I possibly can, and I wouldn't want him to ever feel abandoned or forgotten. I would more than gladly apologize and want to repair our relationship if I upset him. I still am afraid of being abandoned by people, but I am slowly reaching out to trust people such as school and childminders with my son, and I have a small group of mom friends. I think my son is the first person who has truly loved me unconditionally the way I love him, and are finding out who we are at the same time despite having our separate lives. Your 2-year-old son, huh? This is how you make a son husband, everybody. She is making a son husband here. This is what she's doing. So even though you scream at him in his face, right? Right? He knows he loves you unconditionally, and you love him, right? This is son husband. This is son husbanding. This is what you're doing. This is what she's doing to him. Making him fearful of her at an early age, making her histrionics, making him walk on eggshells to avoid her histrionics and give her what she wants and be the dutiful little son husband that she wants. Someone who will never abandon her. I felt immense amount of distress doing the simplest tasks when I had a young baby and had just left my sociopathic ex, but the distress tolerance I have done for myself with a very reassuring, supported, empathetic friend has made me be able to handle bigger situations with less stress response, and I have significantly improved my symptoms and triggers since I left my abusive ex 2 years ago. Anywhere that triggered a distressing memory, I created some happiness and joy in the same place and rewrite the memories in my brain over time. Some are easier to do than others. I would experience mild panic attacks, anxiety, reliving traumatic events from the relationship at certain times of the year, etc. I used to feel like I was wearing lead overalls every day from fried adrenals, and every hour trying to show up for my little boy was excruciating, but I never let him down. Histrionics. Histrionic gobbledygook right there. Histrionic gobbledygook. That's what that is. I breastfed him until he was 2. Of course you did. Of course you did. Because you're son husbanding him. Because you're trying to make him attached to you at all costs. And you could say you're not trying to alienate him from his father. You absolutely are. Without question, that's what you're doing. I breastfed him until he was 2. He met all his developmental milestones, and once weaned, enjoyed a very nutritious diet. We both did it as part, so he would just walk up to you and then want to breastfeed. When they're walking up to you, by 2, he's talking. We did it both as our part of our self-care routine. No, we did it as your self-care routine, because I'm telling you, your son is nothing more than a prop to you. He's a prop. I now feel light and full of spirit most days, and I'm surprised when he falls asleep I still have energy left. My beautiful toddler is now 2 years old, and he has the right to know his father by law, even though he abused me, and even though he has failed 4 drug tests positive for coke and cannabis, and 4 alcohol tests showing chronic excessive level as long as the contact is safe. Wait a minute. Alcohol's out of your body within 24 hours of drinking it. So what kind of chronic excessive alcohol tests could there be? Cocaine's out of your system within 72 hours. So this guy's, you're telling me he's doing coke and then showing up to do drug tests? The only thing that I think will stay, that I know will stay in your system for 30, 60, 96 months is weed, is cannabis. So I'm Not that he wouldn't fail for coke. I mean, I guess he could. I mean, if he's a complete fucking moron. But he's showing up to the test fucking stinking drunk? He admitted the abuse I suffered, manipulation, gaslighting, threats, and controlling coercive behavior. He subjected me to 2 accounts of physical violence around our son, and while I was pregnant. The law says he has to see his son, but it triggers my CPTSD so badly. But I try to rationalize and reason the best I can on the fly at court. It's very tiring. Looking after a child with little support is extremely difficult, especially when trying to heal from and escape from the mindfuckery of my narcissistic mother. She makes out I am ill and unwell, but it is causing the trauma. But it is her causing the trauma, making me and my brother ill, so she can get attention. A bit of much houses by proxy, really. She set me up to meet abusers in my life by the way she treated me and my golden child little brother. She created a dependency in us on her and flirts around in everyone else's life, thriving on the supply. She doesn't work or do anything for herself. She has no self. She wants my son over my dead body. She keeps grooming him and undermining me at the same time. I am the scapegoat. I feel so horrible for your son. You're trying to keep him from her father, your mother. Your mother's trying to get him from you. Like, this poor kid is nothing but a pawn. I am the scapegoat, the truth teller. While holding the mirror up to her face more frequently as I became a teen, her and my dad would hit me, pull me upstairs by my hair, tell me they owned my space and everything in it. If I tried to be a teenager and go to the cinema with my friends, my dad would come into the cinema and drag me out in front of everyone. Dad would perv on me when I used the bathroom and say he was proud of the woman I was becoming. Thinking back now, it makes me feel sick. My mom's eyes would light up when I would get really upset and cry that she didn't understand how his actions made me feel. She would say I was doing that thing again as I would cry uncontrollably, and as a 14-year-old girl, she would threaten to call the doctor and have me sedated. She always made promises that we would do wonderful things in the future together. It never materialized. I know now it never will. She has triangulated me with the rest of her family, including my little brother, so in a sense, I have nothing left to lose if I go no contact now. Despite this, she takes my son over there without saying anything, and they all play happy families without me. How does she get your son? How does she get your son? Like, what do you mean she goes over with your son? I thought you were away from her now. Like, what, you're still giving her your son? Why? Why? I am terrified. I'm so angry. I've got no contact, pretty much, but she does not know I have. Her partner picks up my son for the morning, and I go get him and don't speak to her. It's not ideal, but I'm afraid, Ollie. Her partner picks up... Wait, you're giving the son to the partner? And what do you think's going to happen here? I think you're addicted to the drama. You're addicted to the histrionics of it. I have discovered I'm very emotionally sensitive. No, it's histrionic. It's histrionic. You're not emotionally sensitive. You're histrionic. These are tactics you use to get your way. I have discovered I'm emotionally sensitive, empathetic, and intelligent person who makes decisions based on a healthy rationale, and did some painting, which I enjoyed, and decorated my kitchen, something I have never done before, and have blossomed into a lovely mom, I think, and made mommy friends. We go swimming, have picnics, enjoy our home and lives together. My life is so much more abundant now than it ever has been. My mom is really jealous and keeps trying to get to know the people I know, and keeps inviting herself swimming with us, but she hates swimming and doesn't even own a swimming costume. I had to ban my mom from toddler group, and she didn't take over from toddler group, so she didn't take over and alienate me from everyone saying I have issues and spewing information that's not her place to talk about, and it's about me and personal. One last thing to note is my bipolar dad, who I have no contact with. I have not spoken to him for nearly 3 years now. He's never met my son, his only grandchild. When I told him I was pregnant, he laughed and told me, "Don't come crying to me for money." I never wanted any money, just the tools to become a healthy adult. But you want your mother to take care of it. But you ran back to your mother when the thing with the ex didn't. Now, I understand it's a nasty comment, but it doesn't seem like the comment's out of left field. And you keep handing your son over to your mother, so I guess she can technically watch him. But then you want to decide, I wouldn't want my mother coming swimming and gossiping either. But you want what you want, and then what? Like, nobody else gets a say? Like, you're handing your child over to your mother, and you're continuing this weird sort of relationship with her, which you say is 95% no contact, but it really isn't. It's really just more excuses for more histrionics from you. Is really what it is. I am very independent, and I have learned any help gets thrown in your face. I have learned early on not to rely on these people, but then I met another narcissist. So how can I be sure I won't in the future? This is what frightens me. Everything frightens you, though. Everything frightens you. When you're a histrionic, everything frightens you. Everything's a problem, everything's a trigger, everything frightens you, everything. And I'm sure this is what it's been with you since you say you were abused. Take you for your word about the bathroom incident and your father and your mother. I take you for your word on all that. But your reaction was to learn to be histrionic from it. And by being histrionic, it makes it real easy for people to call you crazy and unreasonable. And because you're histrionic, you don't even see the follies of your own, of what you've written here. You don't even see the hypocrisy of some of the statements you've made in here because you're too concerned on making everything sound overly dramatic for your benefit. And then underemphasizing what you did, like screaming in a 2-year-old's face on several occasions. But I felt bad about it. My dad also laughed and said giving birth will be like shitting a cannonball. I felt really upset, but I never spoke to him again. Well, that is what birth is like. I mean, it's a tough thing to do. I mean, that's pretty, from what I've heard, it's a pretty accurate thing. So it's like you're just looking. It's something like father's an asshole, he's abusive, but you're also looking to be offended. My dad attempted suicide after my brother attempted suicide at 16. This was 10 years ago. I was the peacekeeper and the problem solver. I got the ambulance and was there, everyone else, to my detriment, which I am annoyed about, as I shouldn't have put myself in that position. As you can imagine, there are a lot of examples I could give of crazy behavior and chaos I have witnessed, but I am trying to keep it brief. So you're living in a world of histrionics. Everybody. To conclude my letter to you, I'm afraid of the future. Am I doing a disservice to my son to pull contact with my narc mother? I ask this because my son and her partner are best buddies and drive tractors together every week. He needs one positive male role model in his life, doesn't he? He will only see his dad once a fortnight, but I guarantee you he will use him to get information and control over me. Jesus, you and your ex-husband have major issues. I mean, for you to be judging him, I mean, is really something. It really is. He's never put our son's needs before his own, despite having the opportunity I have agreed to contact last year, but he pursued bullying me instead, and the judge issues him a non-molestation order. What was he about seeing his son? Sounds to me like you're just having a good time playing the court system, playing keep away with his kid. Because if he doesn't care, then why is he continuing to embarrass himself with 4 failed drug tests and trying to see his son for 2 fucking years? You don't need a court order. You don't need a court order for him to see his child. You don't need a court order. Once every 2 weeks, a fortnight. Please. Once every 2 weeks. Somehow you think you're virtuous and justified in any of this. That's... Court said I can't cut everyone out. When I told them about my father, mother, and ex's abusive personalities, this left me feeling I am the problem. I feel so hopeless. The court system is corrupt. They used... Yeah, you got that right, but you got it backwards of why it's corrupt. The system is so corrupt, they used the fact my narc mom was in my life to justify my son seeing his sociopathic father. That's fighting dirty, in my opinion. So because you are getting abused by one person, it means it's a green light to have another abusive person come into your life, your son's life too. Is that a fucking serious comment you just made? Is that a serious statement you just made? You're in a court of law, whether you think family court is legitimate or not, or you're getting the shaft. So the judge, okay, you're telling the judge that he's abusive and toxic and narcissistic, okay? But so is everybody else in your family, but they can stay in, but he can't. And he's supposed to decipher all that, right? That's what you expect? Borderline personality disorder. Borderline personality disorder right there. Right there. You don't have, that's entitlement. Ugh. Oh, God. You're in a court of law and you want the judge to try to make those type of judgment calls? Well, he's going to say, well, you know what? If you're making this determination about him, the same about your mother, but she can say, you have no credibility. You have no credibility. That's on you. Do you see my point? No, I don't. No, I don't. It's a court of law. Choices. You choose to keep these people to have kept these people in your life. You choose. You want to deny your husband, your ex access. What are you fighting in court? Are you trying to deny him full access? That's what it sounds like. Because you're too busy making your son into a son husband. And this was said by CAFCAS, who are the Children and Family Court of Advisory Support Service in the UK. Oh, you're in the UK. For the entire court system, and the children are getting dragged through it. You only have to scratch the surface to see how the law breeds abuse in children. It breaks my heart. And you doubting your channel, you should continue to send floods of tears because your legacy. It's people like you who give others the knowledge to break the cycle and giving so many good people hope for the next generation to be happy and healthier. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell my story, my son's story, and any advice in regards to my son's future would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for reading, and I hope the layout is okay. Holly. Holly, I wouldn't be doing my job if I just blew smoke up your ass. I think there's plenty of room for abuse in your family, but your histrionics and your choice to keep using them is why you're in the situation you're in. You need to take responsibility for your own actions. You want to turn your son into a sexually confused son husband, keep doing what you're doing. Okay? Because for you to be passing judgment on your son's father when you can't handle your emotions, that you have to scream in a 2-year-old's face, no, you've lost any high ground. You've lost it. This is all histrionics. Okay? And for you to expect a family court judge to say your husband's not good, even though you say your ex-husband's toxic, your family's toxic, your ex-husband's out but not your family, but the judge is a jerk because what? Everybody? Well, I have to get rid of everybody at the same, wow. Wow. And meanwhile, his father gets to see his son once every 2 weeks, and you're cool with that. I understand he might have some drug and alcohol problems. But, I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Doesn't make a lot of sense. So, I really hope you work on your emotions and your histrionics. Okay? I wouldn't blow off the borderline diagnosis so quickly, because it sounds like histrionic personality disorder mixed in with a touch of borderline personality disorder. I mean, that's as honest as I can be. So I hope that helps. Thank you for your contribution and your story. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, or a Facebook live chat, or you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been the Narcissistic Resistance.